Hi, Tammy.
Seems like, hey, Tammy, you're on mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I do have a presentation that we're going to do today. Let me see. If y'all don't mind, I'll share my screen.
Sure, yep. I'll make it so that you're able to share.
Thanks.
Our tech person.
And I know you talked to Jeffrey. You said how long was your presentation?
It's about 7 slides, so you estimate about 2 to 3 minutes for each slide. So 2, 4, 6, so 14, about 15 minutes. We can do it in 15 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. I think I'm going to share screen too. All right, let me know if you guys can see that.
Yep.
And it's weird because like my camera's here, but the Zoom meeting's over here. So I'm just gonna move you. It's the beauty of having many screens.
This is coming through perfectly.
Good.
I'll be right back. Just need to step away.
Is Pepco all set for whatever this storm brings?
We are all set and ready to go. We've been tracking it since earlier this week.
Good. Well, we will hope the weather won't get too bad, but you never know.
You never know with these things. And it just looks miserable.
Jeffrey, you're on mute. Jeffrey, you're on mute. Did you want to be on mute?
I was talking to Matt, so that's.
Oh, okay. All right. Just wanted to be sure you knew.
Thank you. Look at that beautiful, those graphics.
Thank you.
Tammy, we'll be recording this so we can, residents will be able to access it anytime to hear the program.
So I talked to Tammy Marnie, and I'm going to explain all the format when we start.
Good.
And
Thank you.
why we're doing it and the way we're doing it. So, and we're going to start in 1 minute because I want to be respectful of everybody's time. And I need to get rid of the noise here. Okay. Okay, well, I note that it is 12 o'clock, so I want to begin what we're calling the Pepco Community Meeting for the Town of Somerset. And I want to start out by having our town manager read the disclaimer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just as a reminder to folks, we are recording this meeting, so people can get this information after the fact as well. We'd ask that folks please state their name and street that they live on in Somerset before asking any questions during the Q&A session. And I will be monitoring the participant list. So if you use the raise hand function, I will then send you a message on the chat to let you know your place in the queue. Pepco has prepared about a 15 to 20-minute presentation for us, and then has graciously offered another 40 minutes or so to answer Q&A from residents. So with that, I will hand it over to Tammy Watkins, who is
No, to me.
I'm sorry, back to our
Okay,
Mayor, Jeffrey Slavin.
Thank you. So I just want to explain a little bit further that the way we're going to do this is the first 15 minutes is going to be devoted to the presentation by Pepco so that the recording can be viewed by residents who only want to hear the presentation. So we're going to, as the town manager stated, the Pepco is going to present for 15 minutes. Then we are going to call on our council for questions, and then we will turn it over to our residents for comments or any questions they might have. And with that, thank you very much, and I will turn it over to Tammy Watkins, and I want to thank her and her Pepco team for providing this special time for us. Hit it, Tammy.
Thank you so much, Mayor Slavin, and I'm pleased to be here virtually with all of you today. And what I'll start out with is I just want to introduce for the residents and meeting participants who we have on the call from Pepco. Tammy Watkins with Government Affairs. Also on the phone with us today, I have Mr. Young Shin, one of our reliability engineers, because we're going to be talking some about Pepco reliability in the town of Somerset. Also, we're going to talk about the electric vehicle charging program that Pepco offers. And on the phone for that, I have Mr. Jason Tucker. And then we'll also spend some time today talking about our streetlight conversion that I know the majority of you who are on this call are probably the most interested in. And that's going to be with Miss Lindsay North. Also on today's call, I also have our new Region Vice President, Mr. Will Ellis. And Will, if you would just like to say hello to the folks and introduce yourself, I'd like to give you that opportunity.
Thank you, Tammy, and thank you to Mayor Slavin for having us this morning. Again, as Tammy mentioned, I'm the newly incoming Regional Vice President of Government Affairs, replacing Jerry Pasternak, who recently retired. I look forward to a continued and a strengthening partnership with the town of Somerset, and if anything that I can do to help increasing your sustainability goals, reliability, et cetera, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Will. the first thing that I want to discuss today is I'd like to hand this over to Mr. Young Shin, who has prepared some information that we wanted to share with the town of Somerset as it relates to your reliability, just a high-level overview. And Young, if you're on the phone.
Hello, Tammy. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Shin from Regional Reliability Group. Before we get started, I would like to just briefly tell the town of Somerset what we do within the reliability group. We typically analyze previous outages, including any components that experience repeated failures, and come up with design recommendation to improve reliability of electrical distribution system. And that work includes post-outage design work and some proactive design work based on feeder performance. Going into some information on the town of Somerset, the town of Somerset is being fed by two Pepco distribution feeders, feeder 14949 and 14950 out of Woodacre substation. Majority of the town is being fed by 14949 with 550 customers under it, and 14950 feeds 12 customers. It covers the section of Cumberland Avenue and Deal Place. There's a cross tie between the two feeders, meaning if one feeder is to be out of service for any reason, the other would provide backup power. On the right, it shows the outage map between October 2019 and October 2020. For the past 12 months, there were 8 outages within the boundary of the town. 4 due to vegetation, 3 due to overhead equipment failure, and 1 due to unknown reason. And for that unknown outage, regional reliability team performed a follow-up field inspection and provided design recommendations, which were implemented. And all those 8 outages happened under feeder 14949. There were no previous outages for 14950. To address some of the vegetation issues that we noticed, vegetation management team will be performing preventive maintenance on those feeders in 2022. Both feeders were last trimmed back in July of 2018, so 3.5 years, 4 years is a typical duration for preventive maintenance for vegetation management. I know my supervisor, Tiffany McCormick, is also on this call. Tiffany, if you'd like to add anything, please feel free to do so.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for inviting us, Tammy, and to the town of Somerset. Thank you all for allowing us to join the call. I believe Jung, our engineer, has said it all, and I actually don't have any, additional comments. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask Jung and myself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As Mayor Slavin said earlier, we'll take questions at the end of the presentation. So certainly if we need to come back to this slide, just let us know.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Tammy. Sorry about that.
Thank you. No, it's okay. The next subject that we were going to discuss today is information about our electric vehicle charging program. And on the presentation slide, you can just see some general highlights about the program. And here on the call with us to discuss, I have Mr. Jason Tucker, and I believe, did I see Jennifer join us as well, Ms. Grisham? Oh, I see, thank you. I have Jen and Jason on the phone to talk about the electric vehicle charging program, and I'll turn it over to either one of you if you just want to go over the highlights for residents.
Jason, you can go ahead and start.
Sure.
excuse me. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today about our Pepco electric vehicle charging program. I'm Jason Tucker. I'm the manager of project execution for Pepco under our Smart Grid and Technology organization. So we're responsible for a lot of emerging technology initiatives, including electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And Jennifer Grisham, my peer, is our overall EV charging program manager for PHI. Just to give you a little bit of background on the program, Pepco was approved back in 2019 by the Maryland Public Service Commission to install, own, and operate utility-owned electric vehicle charging stations that are available to the public. So Pepco is authorized to install 250 Pepco-branded charging stations that will be installed on property that's owned, leased, or occupied by state, county, or municipal government. These chargers, as I mentioned, will be owned and operated and maintained by Pepco, and they're also going to be powered by a 100% carbon-free energy source. The nice thing about this program is there's no additional charge to the government property owners for the equipment, construction, installation, or maintenance. That's all covered by Pepco. So essentially, we just need a location, and then Pepco handles everything from there. Electric vehicle drivers will be charged for using the EV charging stations, and these rates are set by the Public Service Commission. So the cost of the chargers to use them is 18 cents per kilowatt hour for our level 2 chargers, which tend to charge over a couple hour time frame, and then 34 cents per kilowatt hour for our DC fast chargers, which are able to charge much more quickly, which is why they're a little bit more expensive to use. And all of these costs are managed through an EV charging network vendor called Greenlots, which customers can download the app, they can call in when they're at a charging station, or they can also get an RFID card to use the stations. Governmental entities generally can submit sites to us for consideration for EV charging locations. If there's interest, we review the sites, we provide recommendations to which sites we think will work well, proximate to our existing facilities, a space for our equipment. Those are the types of things that we're looking for. And ultimately, we'll make a determination if we can install charging infrastructure on that site. So we would work very closely with the town of Somerset if there's interest on locations that could be attractive for EV charging. Jennifer, anything you wanted to add to what I just said there? Anything I missed?
Hey, Jason, I think that was a really great overview. I would say that this is probably our largest sub-program. We also have a residential component as well as a commercial program that helps install charging infrastructure in multi-dwelling units. And we also have, for our DC fast chargers, a discount for fleet operations. So if the town is interested in any kind of conversion of your own fleet vehicles or anything like that, then we can also help support that. So just something we're really excited about. It's a really important component. Just help EV adoption in general in Montgomery County as well as the state of Maryland.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. That's a great point, and we can certainly share more information on the residential and commercial programs if there's interest from folks on the call. Just to go briefly into the deployment process to give folks an understanding of how we install a charging station. So this is our overall charging station deployment process. So as I mentioned, kind of the first step is site identification. So that can be done by governmental entities. It can be done through Pepco's own knowledge of the service territory. But one of the first things we need to do is identify the potential sites where we could install these chargers. We then review those sites with the governmental site host. So whether it's a municipality, a county, or the state level, we want to review those locations, come to a mutual agreement on the potential site, the location of the chargers on that site, the number of parking spaces that we would use, all those types of details. We want to review and gain initial approval from the governmental site host. Step 3 is where we actually execute a license, and this is kind of our real estate process to make sure that we have access to the equipment. We can maintain it over the life of the charger. It sets kind of the rules around our access to the site, and we work very closely with the municipalities on what that license looks like. We then, once that license is executed, we go through our engineering design process. which can take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. We then file for permits and proceed to construction. Ultimately, once the job is inspected, we're able to place the charges in service, and then they are available for public use. And throughout this process, we think it's important to continue to collaborate with our governmental partners to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the site hosts, provides greatest value to the residents, the customers, with these installations. So we want to make sure that throughout these kind of 6 steps that we're keeping in close communication with our site hosts, which are so critical to our success. Jennifer, anything I missed on this slide you want to add in?
No, I think that was great. Thanks, Jason.
All right. I think that
Thank
might be
you.
it for us, Tammy. Thanks.
Thanks so much. And again, for people on the call, we can always come back to any of these slides for a point of reference. And then lastly, what we have to discuss today is our LED streetlight initiative. And assisting us with that discussion today is Miss Lindsay North. And Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind going over the overview, and then we'll also talk a little bit more in depth about the program, and then we'll turn it back to the mayor for Q&A.
Sure. Thank you, Tammy. And thanks everyone for joining today. So first off, I want to say that we're really excited about this program, and it just went in. So we're anticipating lots of questions and look forward to talking through our proposal. So as folks have probably heard by now, our proposal is a large-scale cohesive conversion of all of our lights within our territory, starting with Pepco, which is about 66,000 lights. We're anticipating that our plan is going to take about 5 years to deploy all these lights across our territory. And pretty importantly, and this is based on feedback we received from customers related to the past program, this program is going to have no upfront cost for customers to convert their lights to LED. And accompanied with that is we're going to have new monthly rates that are at or below what customers currently pay. And this is an important point for us because we wanted to make sure that customers knew that we heard them, that they wanted to get rid of that upfront cost, but they also wanted to maintain existing rates. So a key part of this program that makes it so beneficial is that it's going to be smart street lights. So these lights will have smart nodes on every light that's going to enable more efficient operations and monitoring, as well as some customization for customers, which we think you guys will be pretty excited about. In terms of options, we've pretty extensively looked at what customers have now and picked out 26 different options that are designed to meet your needs. And obviously we'll have some flexibility to expand if required. We want to work with customers to make sure you're happy with what we've come up with. The lighting program itself will, the smart aspect of the program includes a central management system. And that's a key component that's going to create that visibility that we'll have into those lights to make sure that they're working as they're supposed to. And then pretty excitedly, we've also included a pilot in this program to test out some of those smart city things that people have been hearing about. So we're talking about gunshot detectors, pollution monitoring, parking sensors. So that's sort of the leading edge of the modernization of this program, is not only are we converting to LEDs, which are going to be more efficient and cleaner, but we're also including this smart component that'll increase the operational efficiencies and create a platform for future sensors, which we hope to test out in this proposal. So onto some specifics, and we don't have to go through all of these, but we wanted to provide some of these details because we know folks are thinking about them. So as I mentioned, there's 26 different lighting options. That's 9 different styles within that. If you have specific questions about those styles, it's in the testimony, but we're also happy to provide those afterwards. Oh, and as point 2, got ahead of myself, they're right there on the page. So as I said, we think these are going to meet the needs of all of our customers. We'll have a wide range of wattages from 50 watt to 1,000. And importantly, the color temperature that we're offering is in compliance with AMA guidelines and certified dark skies. So in terms of specific of the smart nodes, so this is a key piece to our smart LED program because it creates a communication capacity that enables two-way communication between our streetlight and the utility system. And how these nodes work is they actually leverage and strengthen the existing advanced meter infrastructure mesh network that we have in place. So with that two-way communication, it's going to unlock advanced controls for us and then create greater flexibility for you all. So, you know, we're obviously going to have a schedule starting out, but if you guys come to us and say, hey, we want to dim the lights at a certain time, or we want to change that schedule, it'll be pretty easy for us to do that. And then, as I mentioned, this smart capacity is a pretty important building block to other smart city initiatives. So the third final component of this program is the central management system. So this is the backend system that allows us to collect the information from the smart node and have it work with our existing system. So as an example of the importance of it, having the central management system will allow us to have full visibility into the asset health of each street light. So I think previously, you know, when a street light was out, you'd have to call us or tell us. With this new central management system and the smart nodes, we'll actually be able to see that on our own, which will create a massive amount of operational efficiencies for us. And we think create extreme customer value for you all. It will also have controllability of the streetlight, as I already mentioned, and then readiness to add those third-party sensors, which we've heard many people are interested in, and that's the key part of this pilot that we want to test out is say, you know, we've heard that people are interested, let's see if we can test some of these sensors out and see how they work on our system and how they're of interest to customers. And that's all I've got, Tammy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That concludes our presentation. So what I'd like to do is turn this meeting back over to Mayor Slavin and direct questions.
Thank you very much, Tammy, and we greatly appreciate the time you and the rest of the Pepco staff people have provided to us. And that was a very comprehensive presentation for 20 minutes. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to take questions from our council members, and after that, residents will have an opportunity to ask questions or make comments. And the residents that wish to speak might want to put their name in the chat so that afterward, the town manager will call on you. So we will start with our distinguished council president, Marnie Shaw, who has worked for decades particularly on the streetlight conversion. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Marnie.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. As Jeffrey said, I have been working on trying to get LED streetlights in Somerset for more than 10 years, and I'm not the only person. Before me, there were others who were working on this. So I was very excited to hear this presentation, and thank you, Tammy, for arranging for it. Of course, we might be interested in a charging station, but I think our questions are mainly around the LED streetlights. So am I understanding that you have already picked the 26 lamps that you're going to have available, some of which will fit our existing fixtures? Is that correct? Lindsay?
Yes. Yes. Good morning. So first of all, no pressure with that opening, 10 years. I'll do my best to.
20. It's actually been 20, but who's counting?
But who's counting, right? We'll start there. So yes, we've already selected the lamp styles. They were briefly on the screen, and I don't know, Tammy, are you planning to share these slides?
Yeah, I can share the slides. But as with the lamp styles, yeah, I'm working on a document for those lamp styles. This one? on that one. But we are working on a document for the lamp styles to share publicly now that the filing's done.
Good, because we actually did a pilot last year of 5 different lamps, and our residents picked out which one they liked the best. And then Pepco gave us a $2,500 per pole installation cost. So to have done the entire town would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars, at which point we sort of paused. So we're excited that you all are going to take on the upfront cost, but we would like to see lamps because we did have some preferences from our residents. Are you going to be installing them? I remember years ago I went out to a facility of yours where you had different lamps installed that we could look at. At that point, you even had induction lights up to look at. That's how long ago it was.
Well, certainly, and Marnie, we had the pilot in Somerset. There are other localities that we encourage anyone to visit. Tacoma Park is the one that everyone knows about. Hyattsville also has a tremendous amount of LEDs.
That's not what I'm asking about, Tammy. I mean, we've been, our environment committee and I have all gone over to Tacoma Park. Chevy Chase Village has some LED lights in, and we've been over there. So we've been different places. So I'm interested in the specific bulbs that Pepco is planning to use, and whether we can actually see them lighted in the evening in the way that you used to have a display of lamps, because I think that'll be important for us.
Lindsay, I think that's something we can take back and see how we can accommodate that request.
Yep, I think that's right.
Okay. Speaking for myself, I'll be very interested in learning a little bit more about the smart nodes. This was a very informative discussion, but I'm sure there's more, and maybe Tammy, if you're going to be sharing the slides and you have any additional information, that would be very, very helpful. We're also interested in, given that you have many, many lamps to convert, how you're going to be putting people in line for getting the conversion done, because some people might be 2022, early 2022, and some people might be way out there in 2026. And our residents have been very concerned, especially in these last months when there have been some break-ins, some potential attacks on young women. They've been very concerned about whether we have adequate street lights at night.
I'm not sure if there's a question in there, but I will address it.
There's a question. There is a question. What's going to be your queuing?
Yep. Okay. So I'll say first and foremost, glad to hear your excitement about this. We are going to be spending all of our effort over the next few months working to get this proposal approved. So that'll be our focus. Obviously, internally, we'll be working on a plan so that as soon as we get approval, we can sit down with municipalities like yourselves and come up with a timeline. So know that there's a plan already in the works, and once we have approval to proceed, that's something that we'll move very quickly on, including the first thing that we're going to do once we get approval, if we get approval, is a survey where we'll sit down and meet with all of the localities to confirm the light style that you have, make a recommendation for the LED that we think would be an appropriate transition to. So Tammy, is there anything there you want to add to, or?
No, that's exactly what I would offer, yes.
Well, I just want to say that I know our mayor has volunteered to be helpful in this process, and so Somerset is very supportive of the notion of the conversion without having an upfront cost for our municipality. Thank you. I don't have any other questions right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Council President Shaw. Now I would like to give Councilmember Robin Barr, who also has been working tirelessly on this for years when he was the chair of our town's environment committee. He's also incredibly knowledgeable in this area. So Councilmember Barr, your opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you. Yep. First of all, how can we help is the main driver question here, okay? And certainly we can tell the story that we have a pilot. We've had the pilot for almost 10 years. They provide the best lighting in town, those LED lights. And as far as I know, they have never needed service over those 10 years. So if anybody wants to be convinced of their reliability, then we have some evidence on that in town. Yeah, our residents noticed differences among the LED bulbs when we had the pilot, and some of them they considered more glaring than others. And so there was some concern about the choice of LED bulbs. So anything that we can have that helps us there and allows us to perhaps share with the residents would be useful. If you want to react to any of that, go ahead.
Sure. I was just going to say, I'm not sure what temperature you had on display.
Some of it was temperature. It's 2700 to 3000 is really the range that seems to be less glary, but I don't know what range you've got yourselves. There were some bulbs that you were using that were 4000, I know, 4000K. And the question is, what are you using now?
Yep. So I can answer that. The bulbs that we've chosen to use for this initiative is a 3000, and that's in line with industry standards. It's a warm white, so it should still be approachable, but it also sort of, it maximizes the lumen output. So that's the one that was recommended to us when talking to our manufacturers as well.
Okay, good. That's helpful. Yeah. Now, on the other thing, which is the charging stations, I will say that I am one of several owners of electric cars in town, and our mayor is another owner of electric cars in town, and that's a growing number of people in town have electric cars. So there is growing interest then in charging stations in town. Some of us do have a charging station actually at home, and so we're better accommodated, but others do not have a charging station at home and would be more users of this. One question I have concerns whether you've got software or the company that runs the charging stations have software that allows booking on the charging stations, so that people, because sometimes a level 2 charger, someone can be on it for, well, actually overnight, they can sometimes be on it. So is there any kind of booking system for them?
So this is Jason. I can take that. So the charging station network vendor, which is Green Lots, they have an app, as many of the charging networks do, where you can see visibility into whether or not the charging station is in use. I do not believe out of the box that they have a booking system, but I know it's something that they're looking at for different applications, whether it be like an MDU application or even in the public charging space. So that's a question I can take back to Green Lots. I don't have a definitive answer for you. I don't believe it's available right now, but it may be something that's on their roadmap.
Yeah. I'll just pass that. When we were in Pittsburgh, right by the Google offices in Pittsburgh, we happened to notice on our phone that they have installed a booking system for their chargers in that parking garage. So they do exist, is what I'm saying. They're out there. The other thing, you mentioned level 2 and level 3 chargers. Do all your chargers come with a level 2 and level 3 option, or would Somerset only get a level 2 charger?
So we're approved for 33 level 3 DC fast chargers in Pepco, Maryland, and 217 level 2 chargers to make up our 250. The decision on whether we put a level 2 versus a DC fast charger really comes down to the site conditions. Do we have available service for a DC fast charger? Because that requires us to bring 3-phase service, which we don't have everywhere. And then we have 33 that we have to spread across our Pepco, Maryland service territory. So without looking at a particular site, it's hard to say definitively yes or no, it'd be level 2 or level 3. But it's one of the things that we analyze, and level 3, are areas where we try to locate them in close proximity to highways, heavily traveled areas that folks, may be able to stop for 30 minutes and charge their vehicle. Whereas level 2 might be better for a location where you have other amenities that folks could go out, maybe go shop, go eat, whatever the case might be. So it's really a bit of a judgment call, but we do have a 33 limit on the level 3 chargers.
Yeah, we do have a location near our tennis courts that might work, but we'd have to discuss internally. Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Barr. So before I turn it over to the town manager to call on residents for their questions or comments, I do want to let Pepco know that the council and I are delighted with the number of residents that have been following this issue, and many of them are on this call, and we greatly appreciate it because their input is so vital. And we will be making this Zoom available, of course, to everyone else in town at the conclusion. And we also, again, want to thank you for your generosity of time. And with that, Mr. Town Manager, I turn it over to you to call on residents for questions or comments.
Sure, yes. Our first question is from David Cathan.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. So I have several questions. David Cathan, I live on Dorset. I actually live at the site of the first pilot that was put in by Pepco at Dorset and Little Falls along the section of Dorset up to Surrey. And also, I also have been involved probably as long as Marnie in and out on the street lighting issues over the years. First set of questions are on the street lighting. You referred to this as a proposal. Is this part of a general rate case, or is this a specific, proposal to the PSC? So my question is, in regards to timing, if it's part of a larger rate case, then that will take longer for it to process.
So it is part of our multi-year rate filing that went in on Monday. And Maryland is required to move on their rate cases in a 7-month time period. So we're hopeful that actually that time period will be beneficial to getting this program approved as soon as possible.
So you're basically saying like May or June it would be approved. Is that correct?
If it's kept within the multi-year rate filing. Yes.
Okay. So following up on a question, I think it was Marnie was asking about priority. So what, is there a set of, priority light locations in the Pepco service territory, like near hospitals or near schools and things like that would already receive priority over other locations, and when determining what community or what location will get it?
Lindsay, I can take a stab at that, and if you want to fill in something else. So we're at the very early stages. Right now, with the filing complete, we are in the early stages now of considering the rollout. Something that we have to take into consideration is that under the filing, there is a period of time where we would be committed to doing an analysis and an inventory of our assets before we could actually start doing the actual conversions. And as you can imagine, that would affect the timeline. We're aware that there's some municipalities, some unincorporated areas in both Montgomery and Prince George's County that are in a position where they're more, I'll say, ready to move than others. And Somerset is certainly a locality where you have done a lot of work. And when we consider our rollout and how we wish to proceed, those are things that we'll take into consideration. Obviously, it's beneficial if you're a locality like a Somerset or like a Gaithersburg or like a Rockville or a Tacoma Park, where we've had these sort of long-term engagements, because it really puts into play a lot of things that we have to consider as we roll out. If you're a locality that, has infrastructure, you've done your analysis, the fixtures you like, that's something that that we'll have to take into consideration, because in that instance, it's actually more efficient for us to move in those areas where the localities are, for lack of a better way to articulate, ready to go, more so than others. And something that we're learning, that we learned as we went through our outreach process is, there are other localities that see an opportunity to learn from installations in other municipalities. There are going to be some areas in both counties where they may not want to be installed until such time as they've seen installations elsewhere. And that's something else that we'll take into consideration. So, with regard to how the priorities would work, we're at an early enough process that we're certainly, thinking about it and developing this. And, the closer we get to the official decision from the commission, we'll be ready to engage those localities accordingly. And Lindsay, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, nothing further from me. I think that was spot on.
Okay, I think I've only one and possibly a sub question, and it has to do with the EV charging. And in terms of the town, a good location potentially would be the town hall parking lot. And it's near the tennis courts, it's near Wisconsin Avenue and such. But my question has to do with the fact that I believe that part of the town is fed by the feeder 14950, which seems that's at the end of the feeder. And it seems that it would be hard to get a fast charger in that. Is that correct?
What I'll say is we have not looked at that particular location yet. If there's interest on the town in pursuing that site, we would initially do a desktop analysis to figure out where's our service, where's our feeder located relative to where the chargers are going to be installed. I don't know off the top of my head if that is served by 3-phase there or single phase. Really what we need for the DC fast charger is a 3-phase service, which we don't have everywhere. But if it's close to a major road like Wisconsin Avenue, it's likely that we have 3-phase in the area. It just depends on the specific location. And we work closely with our distribution engineering teams to look at each site and determine, what equipment might need to be added. Sometimes we have to add additional transformers and things like that to accommodate the chargers. But again, that's all paid for through Pepco's program. The town itself would not be responsible for any of those costs. So long story short, it would be to be determined based off our initial review of that site and a site visit.
Okay, thank you. And this is a very geeky last question, and it has to do with, it was mentioned that the connection between the two feeders in town, there's cross ties. Was that put in as an automated recloser as part of the ARRA funds? Or is that a manual closer?
I'm sorry, are Tiffany or Young on the phone? I'm not sure if that's a question you can answer.
This is Junction from Reliability. This is a manual tie, so Control Center would have to close the tie manually.
Okay. So how long time does that take in order to, if there is a failure on one feeder or the other, to make sure the town has power?
Based on a previous outage of a loss of 14,949, it took 7 minutes to make the tie and restore load.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all the questions I had.
Okay. I want to just interject something that we have been joined by the chair of our Environment Committee, Dr. Barton Rubenstein. Okay, Matt.
Next, we have a question from Mitch Narens.
Oh yeah, I just was asking about the actual frequencies of the LEDs. I was part of a study that we did in aviation about glare for pilots and how multispectral the lamps are that you're suggesting, or are they single frequency? I see the color temperature, but there's also a question about how well they render color, because specifically knowing what color the car was that just drove away from you is an important thing. So can you help us with that?
Hey, Mitch, that is a great question. That is very detailed, and I will have to get back to you on that. So I will go back to some of the more detailed experts and get an answer for you.
If you have the spec sheets on the specific lights that you're thinking about installing, that would be helpful.
Okay. And Mitch, this is Tammy Watkins. Just as a follow-up to help inform as we do our own research on our side. In your experience, is there something that you can offer that we should be concerned about as we're considering LEDs?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, I was chief system engineer for navigation at FAA for many years. And one of the issues was replacement of par 38 lamps in approach lighting systems because the manufacture of those lamps stopped. And the idea of putting in just an LED lamp became an issue because a lot of the enhanced vision devices that pilots use were looking for the heat off the lamp. But in the process of testing LEDs, we found that the more narrow the spectrum, the more the human eye perceived it as glary. So in fact, they came up with almost a 1.5 multiplication factor on, even though the luminance of the bulb read by a meter would be the same, the human eye perceived it as being more glary because of the single frequency nature of it. So if you look at LED lamps that are used, for instance, for photography and stage lighting and such, you find that the LEDs that are incorporated into the lamps are multispectral to sort of give more of a span, so the human eye doesn't see that intense one frequency lamp. So I was just wondering, I know that people have been manufacturing these street lamps for a while. I just was wondering if people saw some as more glary than others. And then the color rendering thing is an important thing, specifically in terms of if in fact something happened in town and you had to call the police and they asked you to describe the person, the car, or the whatever, it would be nice to be able to talk about the colors that are involved there, because was the person wearing a green jacket, was the car, you know, brown or green or blue?
Yeah.
So, right.
I know that's something that just in reference to color rendering, and I think Lindsay can also confirm, I know that those are discussions that we're having, but those are discussions that are happening with a different group and at a higher level. So I'll thank you very much for highlighting that, and we'll make sure after this meeting that we work on, you know, putting those spec sheets that feature the lights that we are considering and making those publicly available.
And we will disseminate that information, that answer to everyone. And we will also not charge Pepco for Mitch's outstanding analysis.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Town Manager.
Next, we have Jack Frank. Jack, if you could just unmute yourself.
First, I want to thank Pepco for doing this. It's been a long time coming. Like others, I've been working on this for a long time as well. Hi, Tammy. We've talked a number of times at the council meetings and others. I think I heard that the filing's already been made.
That is correct.
Is it available to the public?
It is, and I will certainly make sure that we get those links to the town for residents to view those public files.
I would appreciate that. Second, you've said it's part of a multi-year filing. If it were a separate filing, would that be faster?
That's an excellent question. Lindsay, do you want to take that, or?
I think the path that we have chosen, we think is going to be the quickest resolve for this issue. So given that the military rate filing was coming, we decided it was best to just combine it within it.
Okay, I think I heard someone mention pilot programs. We're referring to old previous pilots. There are going to be new pilots, and if so, can we be on the list to be a pilot?
Yes, so there is a new pilot as part of our proposal, and to test out the functionality and the value to customers like you all. We've included a pilot for smart sensors. And so smart sensors, these are things like the gunshot detectors, the pollution monitors, other sorts of devices that can be deployed that leverage the internet connectivity that the smart node will add to the streetlight. And so the reason we're piloting this, or would like to pilot it in this initiative, is because we're already hearing people are interested in those devices. And so we want to use this pilot as a way to capitalize on the while we're installing the lights, we can actually just put those sensors up at the same time, so we won't need an additional truck roll. And it'll allow us to work with 1 to 2 localities to really determine what is the value of these sensors to you, so that we can better understand a potential broader offering in the future.
Okay, is there a mechanism to volunteer to be on the pilot, or is that?
I think Tammy just wrote your name down. So
we've been asking.
Well, in addition to so much free consulting, I'm thinking, you know, we can make something work here. But the pilot much like the process for rolling out conversions, we're in the early stages for thinking about localities that we could work with on the pilot. Certainly, you know, Somerset is well positioned, but at this time, you know, what we'd appreciate is just the opportunity to finish considering those localities that we would extend an offer to participate in the pilot. But again, Somerset's got a very compelling case. I will say that.
Jack, I can assure you that the council and I have been lobbying furiously and keeping in touch with Pepco, probably more than almost any other municipality. But thanks for bringing that up, because we listen to our residents.
Okay, lastly, Robin, I think asked, is there anything we can do to help the filing get approved quicker? Should we be writing a letter to the Public Service Commission? Should we be thinking about other mechanisms of contact?
Certainly, I will add, you know, I think in terms of making it go quicker, I don't know that we could ask the public or even Pepco itself to influence that process. Through the filing, there will be opportunities for public input, and certainly we'll be back in front of people like Marnie and Mayor Slavin and this community again, you know, seeking letters of support, possibly testimony if needed, but there will be opportunities for the public to convey, demonstrate their interest in the LEDs, the LED program or the pilot.
Okay. Again, I want to thank Pepco for doing this. This looks like a wonderful environment improvement for everyone.
Well, also, Jack, it's up to us to lead the charge to get public comment from our residents. And I know that the council and I will be doing that, but I'm glad you brought that up. Mr. Town Manager, it's back to you.
Thanks. I have a question from Gary Crockett. So Gary, go ahead.
Okay, I think I've got myself unmuted here. As I just told Matthew, I'm a party crasher from Chevy Chase Village. So this is in that context. But you started out by saying, as if it's an obvious truth, that your customers all want no upfront costs. Presumably you're not a charitable organization, so we're paying those upfront costs. It's just a question of whether we do it upfront or whether we do it in terms over time by the rate that we're paying. And Tacoma Park, by taking on those upfront costs, got their lights a lot earlier than anybody else, and one suspects that we could do the same. If we wanted to take on upfront costs upfront, maybe we could get earlier positions on the list. But we have been frustrated by a complete inability to get numbers that would allow us to make that financial decision, because Tacoma Park paid a few $100s per light for their conversion, and everybody else is being quoted a couple of $1,000s per light. And my looking at the filing, I couldn't find, I just may not have known where to look, but I certainly couldn't find anything that would tell us what effect taking on the upfront cost would have on our downstream use costs. And I could not find any information about what realistic upfront costs are to do it that way. So can you help me?
Lindsay, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Why don't you start, and then I will fill in talk about the rate.
So thank you, Mr. Crockett. You bring up the challenge that has sort of dogged this entire process. And let me just take a moment to talk about Tacoma Park, because I think something that everybody should remember about Tacoma Park is Tacoma Park was also a special pilot for Pepco. So there were a lot of costs that Pepco assumed in doing that work in Tacoma Park that unfortunately we just couldn't replicate in other locations. And ultimately those costs that Pepco assumed is really what affected the cost that Tacoma Park paid up front, be it per light, per fixture, or for any engineering design work. we know that that information is out there, and we know that it's been communicated. And something that we just regret long term was that there was also it also was unclear for localities what Tacoma Park paid versus what Pepco was asking localities to pay up front for their construction and installation costs. Because relative to your point, I think the issue that there were municipalities, like you say, that an upfront cost was not necessarily the real burden. The real burden was just not knowing what exactly that was. So if you were a locality that wanted to be in the LED space, that wanted to upgrade your facilities, obviously the numbers you would get from Pepco were different than what you saw in Tacoma Park. And that's our hope with this filing, is that, with no upfront cost, we're able to do for a long time what localities have asked us to do, which was to, upgrade and make these LED conversions. With the expansion of fixtures, which I know was another issue for some localities, fixture cost, fixture type selections. We're hoping that with the expansion of the fixtures, it also makes this more palatable for our localities. You had asked a question about the rate specific, and Lindsay, if you wanted to add anything else about the rate, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. So I think you sort of hit the nail on the head there. It was, what we heard is that it was a barrier to the conversion process, that's this upfront cost. And so the way that we have designed this rate is we've taken that upfront cost, which is the cost of the light itself, and built it into the monthly rate, while keeping rates at or below what you're currently paying. So
is that our only option? Is there any provision for, I understood that you had done that, but I thought there was also the ability for the communities to do their own upfront installation, or maybe not their own installation, but at least pay for it. And that could, that could result possibly in our having a little more control over the timing of the process and so forth. Is that just not the case? Is our only option to have the upfront cost buried into the rate going forward?
So communities can now, right now, if Chevy Chase Village is interested in having facilities upgraded and the village wants to assume an upfront cost, and Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, you can do that now. You can pay that upfront cost. You can make LED conversions. We can talk with you offline about styles and types. If the town of Chevy Chase would like to own its own lights, these are going to be metal pole fixtures, and you want to install them at town hall or on certain streets or parks or decorative areas, the town can do that now. Our anticipation with the filing was that there were communities that they wanted to do this, but the minute Pepco came to the table and said, well, your upfront cost is going to be $100,000 or $150,000, localities that wanted to make those upgrades just said that was too much. And that's sort of the nexus of what we're offering, and that is, there is no upfront cost associated. But to your question, if there are localities that are interested in current conversions, we can do that now.
But how do we go about finding out what the costs of that are and so forth, and what effect that would have on our rates going forward?
So I'm sorry, Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, you would be on the current, what's current in the tariff, those current LEDs. And then I believe, and I believe what you may have heard from other localities, you're looking at anywhere between $1,600 to $2,000 a light. So if you have, and I'm just speaking in general, so if your town is looking at converting 100 lights at around, $1,600 to $2,000 a fixture, those are going to be your upfront cost, and then you would be put on the current LED rate. Lindsay, am I skipping over anything?
No, I mean, I think that's right. But, honestly, we're talking about a year, hopefully, difference timing here. So I think if the town, if Chevy Chase Village is that eager, obviously do what you need to do. But I think the whole point of this filing is to be responsive to communities. And
it's not so much a matter of
okay, I need to interrupt because we only have a few more minutes.
Okay.
And I would like to see if anybody else from Somerset has a question.
I did have one question that was sent to me recently at 4822 Cumberland Avenue. And I think that might have even been on the outage map that was shared in your presentation. A street light went out, and I think there was some issue aside from just the light fixture, but there might have been a wiring issue or something that, in any case, the light did get fixed. And the resident there had told me that they're very happy with how the new light looks, that it's providing much better lighting than whatever was there before. I wanted to get a sense of if there are areas where we have old light fixtures that are giving off dimmer light. Might there be an opportunity to even replace them in the meantime with the high pressure sodium lights that provide more adequate lighting?
Is there a final comment from Pepco on that to address that? Last word. Lindsay, Tammy.
I'll just say that I think if there's a request, if there's a light that's dim or is not working as properly and you have a concern about it, to let us know, and that's something that we can obviously address because we want to make sure things are working as they should.
Matt, I can follow up with you after the meeting on that location.
Okay, great. Well, there was one, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, there was one last question from Barton Rubenstein.
Okay, briefly, because it's 1 o'clock.
Thank you for letting me have this comment and statement at the end. I just really appreciate everyone's hard work and focus on this very, very important issue, especially in this climate emergency that we are all living in and day out. I live on Dorset, and I look at the LED light that Pepco put in 10 plus years ago. I look at it every day, every night. I don't think it has dimmed at all. They've all worked perfectly. It projects a nice light. I think this is a great program. It needs to be put in yesterday. Obviously, you guys are trying your best to do it yesterday. Let's do this as quickly as possible. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, for your efforts.
Okay, with that last word from our Environment Committee Chair, I want to thank everyone. And we know what our marching orders are, and I think Pepco does too. So let's move forward and get this done, and we'll see you all in the future.
Thank you
Bye,
very
everyone.
much,
team.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.